Welcome to There's Sometimes a Buggy, Irresponsible Opinions about Classic Film. I'm Elise.
I'm Dave. This week on the podcast, it's the Hollywood Studios Year by Year. Warner Brothers 1935. We'll be discussing The Right to Live and I Found Stella Parish. After that, stay tuned for another installment of So This Is Saris. We'll delve into the American cinema and find out what the great man had to say about a randomly selected director.
The great man speaks.
As is our custom with studios, we're going to introduce things by looking at some coffee table books that we have around the home. First up, Joel W. Findler's The Hollywood Story. He's got his wonderful chart of personalities under contract to each studio in a given year, and he gives them 1, 2, or 3-star ratings. As near as we can figure, these correspond to the value that that performer had to the studio during the length of that particular contract, that span of years, but not necessarily referring to the exact year that we happen to be in. Warner Brothers, one of the big movers and shakers of the 1930s and very much associated with their roster of players, so as you might imagine, this is going to be a fairly lengthy list. Joan Blondell, 2 stars. Edward G. Robinson, 3 stars. James Cagney, 3 stars. This is the last year, by the way, before Cagney defected for 2 years and went to work at Grand National, which was an upstart that really didn't serve him all that well and he had to come back. Barbara Stanwyck, her last year with the studio until her return in the 1940s, 2 stars. Bette Davis, 3 stars. Kay Francis, 2 stars, often decried on this podcast. Paul Muni, 3 stars. Dick Powell, 2 stars. Humphrey Bogart, this is his second contract with the studio. He had been there for 1 year in 1932, got no stars for his pains at that time, but now he's back and he's about to start an epic run with the brothers Warner. Not so much in 1935 though. You wouldn't be terribly excited by the roles they were going to give him that year, but only a matter of time, and he gets 3 stars for this giant contract that he has all the way into the 1940s. Pat O'Brien, 2 stars. Next up, we've got the major mid-1930s Warner Brothers reinforcements who came on together, worked together a lot. Olivia de Havilland, 2 stars. Errol Flynn, 3 stars. Claude Rains, 2 stars. And last, and possibly least, Al Jolson, 1 star. This was his second stint at the studio. In the late 1920s, he got 3 stars for his jazz singer heroics.
Not a big studio for the female stars.
Well, only Bette Davis gets 3 stars, but you've got some pretty amazing actresses on that
You've got
list.
about 20 men on there with 3 stars. Although I do feel like, based on what I learned about Kay Francis's career this time around, I think you could contest the 2 stars.
I believe she is one of the great performers of all time.
No, just based on box office, I think you could contest the 2 stars.
Excellent. Looking forward to hearing that. I have a biography of Kay Francis. I Can't Wait to Be Forgotten is the title. I've always meant to read it, but have not done so yet. All right, another feature of Findler's book, he tells us which films in a given year at that studio earned Oscars. It was a pretty good year for Warner Brothers. In 1935, they won 4 Oscars. Dangerous took home the Best Actress Oscar for Bette Davis. This is the one that people always say she won in consolation for Of Human Bondage. A Midsummer Night's Dream, which won 2 Oscars. Best Cinematography for Hal Moore, and Best Film Editing, Ralph Dawson. And Gold Diggers of 1935 took home Best Music, Original Song. This is Lullaby of Broadway by Warren and Dubin. Amazing song and a truly remarkable number in that Busby Berkeley film. So bravo, Warner Brothers. Next, we'll stroll over to John Springer's Forgotten Films to Remember, a book that I've cherished since my teens. So this book takes us through, year by year, the films that Springer believes are etched in film history, already remembered. He gives us those, list style, quickly. And then he's a little more expansive about the movies that he thinks have been forgotten and deserve to be reclaimed. On the remembered side, we've got Captain Blood, the story of Louis Pasteur, Midsummer Night's Dream. You'd think he would have put Gold Diggers of 1935 on there, but
Yeah, I think that's better remembered now than any of those others.
yeah, but not so much at the time, possibly. On the forgotten side, let's hear what Springer had to say. Black Fury was a gutsy and, for its time, courageous film with Warner Brothers always into topical subjects, scoring with a sociological drama with a labor theme. Paul Muni gave one of his finest characterizations as a stupid Polish miner forced into a fight for rights he can scarcely comprehend.
Stupid!
Yeah, I think that's going a little far based on my memory of the film. He does struggle at times to understand all of the sociological and political economy implications.
How about an ordinary?
Yeah.
Are they the same thing?
Michael Curtiz directed the Abram Finkel and Carl Erickson screenplay, with Karen Morley, J. Carol Naish, William Gargan, and John Quaylen in the cast. Those are a lot of communists. We have that on the schedule, so we will discuss it. Betty Davis stole Border Town right away from Paul Muni as an unstable and finally insane wife.
Starts unstable, gets worse.
With a lech for Mexican Muni. A lech.
A wife with a lech.
Border Town's a pretty interesting movie. Part of its storyline was remade in They Drive By Night, and Ida Lupino gives her freak out on the stand.
The one thing you don't want in an unstable wife is a lech.
Josephine Hutchinson, Pat O'Brien, and Jean Muir played with sincerity in a big business drama, Oil for the Lamps of China. That too, pretty interesting film, and it's on our schedule at some point in the next 20 years.
I think we watched it together before.
We did. Clive Hirschhorn's The Warner Brothers Story, his blurb on our first film. An undistinguished version of Somerset Maugham's The Sacred Flame.
Whoa!
The Right to Live, released in Britain as The Sacred Flame, starred Josephine Hutchinson and George Brent as the adulterous lovers, with Colin Clive outacting them both as the invalid husband who, it is dramatically revealed by nurse Peggy Wood, did not die of natural causes.
The same demands are not being made, I would say.
Ralph Bloch wrote the screenplay, William Keighley directed with competence rather than flair, and the cast included Henrietta Crossman, C. Aubrey Smith, Leo G. Carroll, and Halliwell Hobbs. James Seymour supervised.
So Josephine Hutchinson, best known to me for her bizarre role in North by Northwest and her delivery of the line, "Roger, you didn't borrow Laura's Mercedes."
I am a maniac for Josephine Hutchinson. I love her. She's in some really good oddball movies in the 1930s. Happiness Ahead, a romantic comedy with Dick Powell, and Mountain Justice, just a remarkable film that we're going to be doing in a couple of years.
Actually, I think I did that wrong. I think she says Mercedes, which is much better.
I also really like her performance in the Twilight Zone episode, I Sing the Body Electric, where she plays a mechanical nanny.
I enjoyed her in this.
She's always good. I do agree, though, that her role isn't the most exciting. Colin Clive certainly gets the best opportunities in this film, and I think he makes the most of it. This is a pretty wonderful performance.
Yeah, that makes good use of the fact that he looks like he's on death's door.
Well, he pretty much is, isn't he? He's going to be gone within a couple of years.
How sacred was the flame? We don't know.
Have you read this play or seen it?
Goodness, no. I've hardly ever seen any plays. I don't know what you're talking about. As to reading them, I would not be reading Somerset Maugham plays. He hasn't really been remembered as a literary playwright. Besides, when I was reading the popular plays of the 20th century stage, it was an American collection that they had in my junior high library. I did look up the plot, and this is an interesting situation, maybe in some ways similar to Letty Linton that we were talking about and speculating about in the last episode. I was wondering whether the audacious ending and immoral by some lights of Letty Linton was the result of the studio just feeling like the movie needed a happy ending. Maybe the studio felt like the days of the tragic women's picture were over and depression audiences wanted a happy ending. Who knows?
Sometimes the happy ending is the more cutting-edge choice.
The more subversive ending.
Certainly for Letty Linton. I don't know about this one. Well, what is the real ending of the play?
First of all, pretty much the whole play is in the form of a whodunit. So the character, we don't get as much backstory about the love story between Colin Clive's character and his wife and he dies much earlier in the proceedings rather than at the end.
That's one of the weaknesses of the film from my perspective anyway. Like, we still don't get enough. Like, I don't feel like the movie takes enough time to establish them as a couple that you want to cheer for before the accident. The play doesn't give you any.
Well, yeah, I don't think you are from the plot summary I read here, the detailed plot summary on the Wikipedia page. I don't think you are supposed to root for them at all. Are you afraid of me spoiling this in case any of our listeners might someday see a production of The Sacred Flame?
No, I think we can safely spoil.
So in the play, the mother killed her son to prevent him from learning that Stella, we've got a Stella double feature here.
That's true, they're both named Stella.
That his wife Stella has had this affair, which is going to come out because she's pregnant.
Right, and he can't impregnate her in his condition.
Yeah, and on the TCM write-up about the film version, they're like, well, this code style, this code-determined change to the plot means that the whole point of the play is ruined because the subject matter of the mercy killing doesn't even come up. And I'm like, in what universe is euthanasia somebody deciding to murder you?
Yeah, that's
because they think that
you can't handle the truth.
You can't handle some bad news. What's the worst that's going to happen to the son if he finds out about his wife? He'll die. So how have you, made anything better by just taking care of that for him?
Well, this way he gets to go to heaven thinking his wife loved him.
That's not an argument for euthanasia.
It's not a good one, anyway.
It's a really, really bad one.
I don't know what Mom was thinking, if that's what he wrote. Or maybe it's supposed to be a fucked up situation in the play.
Well, it sounds like it, but...
That's fine. If it's about this mother's insane... Good.
Yeah, if the whole subject matter of the play is that this mother is way overreacting, that's fine, but it certainly has nothing to do, unlike what TCM and Wikipedia want to say, it certainly has nothing to do with euthanasia.
No, it doesn't sound like
Or
it.
I could just decide, I think Dave's life sucks. I'm gonna murder him in his sleep.
Well, that's arsenic and old lace. Those old ladies think that they are dispensing mercy.
So
right?
is the subject of arsenic and old lace euthanasia?
Well... According to this TCM writer, I guess so.
Or what about Joseph Cotton in Shadow of a Doubt?
Well, yeah, he says he's putting those people out of their misery too, because they're useless and stupid.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I think the story that we get in the film is more interesting.
Yeah, it sounds like an improvement. I didn't think it was the greatest movie of all time.
I thought it was a pretty okay melodrama.
I liked it a lot. Like I was saying before, I felt it was a little unbalanced. I could have stood a little bit more time with the couple in their happy early married days, but on the other hand...
I'm not sure that we're really supposed to feel that it's ever that happy. Like, probably the most interesting scene in the whole movie is Josephine Hutchinson's reaction to his proposal.
Yeah, exactly. That part does intrigue me, right? That they're laying the groundwork for the fact that, okay, he's a good guy and he loves her a great deal and she agrees to marry him because she's hungry. I mean, that's how she puts it. It's all very lightly tossed off, but maybe that's the truth, Like, she's not really in love with him.
Yeah, I mean, you could, on the first pass, watching the scene, it works really well because you're very dubious about this response of hers, but at the same time, you think, oh, maybe this is just the way this couple works. Maybe this is...
I mean, it is playful banter.
Yeah, maybe this is just their particular form of playfulness. Maybe they understand each other really well and speak their own couple language, but no.
No, and they're not really in sync, right? I mean, we're introduced to them at the opera. Colin Clive does not want to be there. I mean, he's like twiddling his thumbs and rolling his eyes as the whole thing's going on.
That's pretty amazing, a pretty amazing first scene. Both of our movies started with theater scenes, right?
That's true.
And they're both really goofy. You're hearing this extraordinary, transcendent Wagner music, the Liebestod, and seeing a bunch of funny-looking goofs in Viking helmets standing around on the stage.
That's opera, man.
Well, that's, Bugs Bunny opera, and they were caricaturing something apparently very real. Wagnerian opera looks ridiculous.
Bugs Bunny is a Warner Brothers product.
Image of it versus the music. It's just, have them sing behind a black curtain already.
Yeah, it's probably better just to listen to it on Spotify. I've never seen this movie before. Unusually for Warner Brothers movies of the 1930s, both of these were new to me this week. Colin Clive, I would say about 70% of the time plays a maniac, so you're kind of primed for, okay, is there going to be serious drama in the sense that he is going to turn on her at some point? Is he going to be dangerous? Are we supposed to be worried for her? Of course, none of that. You don't know at first, but you do feel like they're a bit out of sync.
Well, it's interesting because he's the one who has all this depth, apparently. He's the one who keeps acting as a Somerset Maugham mouthpiece for Hindu mysticism and Neoplatonism, right? He keeps talking about how his body is just temporarily on loan.
Right?
And he seems to think his soul and his wife's soul are going to be together forever, regardless of what happens to him on this plane or with this plane.
He doesn't cherish mere life the way most of us do, most characters do, and he is constantly up there in the air courting death.
But you'd think if you were that detached, it wouldn't matter to you quite so much that you're unable to perform as a man any longer.
I don't know, is it an inconsistency or is it actually good characterization that someone who talks a good platonic game might have trouble actually living up to it when they start losing the use of a lot of their body?
Or is the body the only thing that's worth sticking around for? And if you don't have that, might as well say farewell. Like a real Neoplatonist would, of course, say that you have to practice detachment from the body.
He's in a much better position than a lot of injury victims in movies. I mean,
he's fabulously wealthy.
I mean, he's able to use his upper body. He can read to his heart's content. You would think there would be something in that. He can hug his wife. He can't do some of the other things he might like to do, but
his mouth works, presumably.
yes, that's true. But no, he really wants to get back out there in the game. He wants to feel the grass under his feet. Sentiments people can all identify with, I'm sure.
Josephine Hutchinson is also curiously characterized because what is Tristan and Isolde standing in for? She seems like the deeper one when we first meet them. He's not having any reaction to the emotions of this opera at all. He gets his emotions up in the air, as you were saying.
And that's one of the interesting things that happens with Colin Clive, is that he realizes after the accident. He's already in love with her. He proposes after all. But he realizes after the accident how much he is attached to her rather than any of the other grand ideas he's been entertaining.
It's true, but then she turns out to be this apparently totally superficial character who only wants to go out and dance and party. And if she can't do that, there's no point to her marriage, apparently.
That's what she's told by her husband, that she must go out and dance and have fun.
Well, it seems to be true because she falls in love with her escort.
Right. Well, once she starts doing it and she's hanging out with George Brent, who's a very pleasant companion, I guess, yeah, nature takes its course.
As I was saying, though, what is Tristan and Isolde standing in for? Is it adultery? Is that the story that moves her? These two people who can't be together? Or is it love that transcends death, which would be the story of herself and her husband?
Yeah, I mean, that winds up having a greater meaning for Colin Clive than for any of the people that are actually paying attention to the opera. It's a puzzling movie because it does feel a little bit disjointed, maybe because they reworked the plot so heavily. It's got some knockout scenes. I really loved Peggy Wood as the nurse.
Yeah.
She kind of comes out of nowhere, although she was a famous actress, I believe, right? From the stage or from silent movies, something. I know the name.
A Time article from the Time actually singled her out as giving an outstanding performance in a role almost devoid of lines.
We've seen a million films from this period where someone has had an accident, is convalescing, and there's a nurse in and out of the scene, maybe shares a chuckle or two or a poignant moment or two with our star. But I don't think I've ever seen a movie where the nurse all of a sudden just grabs center stage like that. That's such a pivotal moment of the film.
I mean, it's being set up throughout the whole movie, what she's doing with these pills, and the fact that she's fallen in love with him and doesn't approve of the wife.
There's definitely tension between the nurse and the wife. That is established. And yes, as you say, Leo G. Carroll is constantly talking about how dangerous those sleeping pills are. So those are the Chekhov pills.
But also, what does Colin Clive really think he's doing by forcing these people together? It seems masochistic.
It definitely seems masochistic.
And I did wonder if we were going to get the Wings of the Dove ending where one of two things happens. In the Hollywood version, they come together in the dead person's name, which is what happens in this movie. Or in the tragic/noir ending, they can't bear to be around each other anymore.
That's where it's heading, right? She tells him, you've got to go back to Brazil. We just can't see each other anymore. I have to tend to Colin Clive. It certainly could have ended that way as well.
Yeah, and then, the other part of the Wings of the Dove plot that's not noirish is that sometimes, and there was plenty of groundwork possibly laid for this, sometimes the beloved falls in love with a dead person after they die.
Exactly. She could decide, yeah, I've been having all this fun with George Brent, but now that I know Colin Clive was willing to kill himself for my happiness, I love him so much more than I ever did when he was walking around.
Or not walking around.
Because that certainly could have been there, right? Because as we've been saying, she seems a little ambivalent about their marriage.
I guess when I was saying that this is the more subversive ending, it's only more subversive compared to the plot of the play, which is condemning this adultery. I guess it hasn't gotten to the point of sex.
They've been out in public the whole time, so it'd be hard.
But still no blame is put on these characters, and no blame is put on the wife, and that does seem accidentally radical.
Yeah, it is a nice touch. And Henrietta Crossman, who plays the mother, who in the play feels that what's going on is so horrible she must kill her son to protect him from the knowledge, here she is all for it. She thinks that this is right. It's only fair that her daughter-in-law should go off with her non-paralyzed son.
Yeah, so it does, like I said, comparatively, it feels like a accidentally radical happy ending.
Now, what it says about people who are paralyzed is pretty horrible, because it's basically saying, no, this guy, he's better off dead.
Well, not objectively. It just so happens, like I was already saying, it just so happens that he, for some reason, feels that if he can't act as an escort to his wife and can't phallically perform, then he is useless. It doesn't mean, I don't know what the quote-unquote movie thinks that.
Everyone in the cast agrees.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be abnormal.
I know, it's illustrating the way society felt about people in this position, which I hope we don't feel anymore.
Whereas, of course, I'm just looking at this guy and I'm like, well, I am not asking the universe to paralyze me.
No, please.
I'm just thinking about this guy is rich. He could spend all day long writing and reading or scrolling on the internet. This doesn't seem so bad to me.
Yeah, the doctor keeps saying, well, he could live for 20, 30 years yet.
He and his wife could have a podcast.
And what a useless, horrible existence that would be. Undertone that sneaks into Leo G. Carroll's every statement.
This could be like a super cool movie about paralyzed husband and his wife and their podcast. She can sleep with his brother on the side with his blessing.
Yeah, I mean, he could have run for president. The president at the time was paralyzed.
Good point. His wife was off doing her own thing for sure.
Strange film. I'm glad we watched it. It does make me want to know more about Peggy Wood. Did you find out anything about her?
Well, apparently she played the Mother Abbess in The Sound of Music, so I remember that character very well from childhood viewings. Also, she was in the 1950s TV series Mama as the title character.
Was she famous in the 30s for stage work, possibly, or something? It just seems like they went and got her for a specific reason.
Well, let's see. It doesn't give a lot of detail here in the Wikipedia page, but it does say Wood received numerous awards for her theatrical work, and for a while was president of the American National Theatre and Academy.
Okay, so a prominent stage actress.
Correct. So let's see what she actually appeared in on the stage, though. She did appear in a lot of musicals, operettas, but also classical drama, classical Shakespearean drama.
So she was a singer. She introduced the song Will You Remember, a great song from Maytime.
And apparently she was also a member of the Algonquin Round Table, who does not appear in Mrs. Parker and the Vicious Circle. Or does she? Is that where you know her name?
No, I don't think they mention her by name in Mrs. Parker. Maybe. I hope she's not one of the inspirations for the composite character played by Gwyneth Paltrow.
Let's hope not.
She's a subject for further research. I was quite impressed by what she was able to do with that nurse role. And yeah, all of a sudden it does turn into a murder mystery. She's trying to turn it into that, and it's really striking. You know, she's standing up to all of these people who have so much more power than her. All of these tremendously rich gentry and the doctor who has already signed the death certificate, and she's saying, you can all fuck off. I'm going to the coroner, and you know what that means.
Yeah, but we also know she's wrong, because we've had it set up for us this whole time that Colin Clive can get around and people don't know about it.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's impressive nevertheless.
This has got to be Leo G. Carroll's as the Doctor. The most absolutely lifeless performance he ever gave on film. Makes his de facto authority all the more evident. His facial muscles don't move, ever.
He's a stiff upper lip doctor. He can't beat Colin Clive at chess. Can't bluff him at all either about his condition after a while.
Despite having the best poker face imaginable. I love him in the Hitchcock movies.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how bad he is at this, though, because he makes up this thing about 6 months from now, we're going to put you through surgery. He doesn't even mark it in his book anywhere. Remember, lie about 6 months from now, surgery.
Look, I think this is all very half-assed because they just are all kind of expecting Colin Clive to kill himself as soon as he learns the truth. So basically, they're just trying to keep him alive for an extra 6 months.
Yeah, I guess so. They made no provisions for any time after that. You'd think they could have strung him along further.
How?
Well, we did the tests and...
I mean, they could have watched a lot of melodramas to get some ideas, but still.
We need 6 more months of convalescence and then you'll be ready for the operation and then you'll walk again and feel the grass.
No, Leo G. Carroll does not have the stamina for that.
And the structure of this household is fun too, I find. You know, you've just got the mother, Henrietta Crossman. Father presumably died a long time ago. C. Aubrey Smith is a neighbor who's always popping in and talking about how, yeah, prognosis is not good. The boy's useless. We just have to face it.
And of course, they're making their money off, I guess they're making their money off of plantations? Or is this just an enterprise? Maybe this is just an enterprise. Like George Brent just bought a coffee plantation because that's what he felt like doing, and Colin Clive just wants to fly around in planes until he has an accident. This is the kind of family we're talking about?
Yeah, they're absurdly rich. They're landlords in the British countryside. So they've got all this money coming in. Sure, if you're in the mood for a South American adventure, you can always expand the family fortunes, and that's what George Brent has been doing.
I'm just wondering if they were established on that basis, like in Mansfield Park, or who knows?
We don't get enough information to make that determination, but they're exploiting people regardless to live this lifestyle. I mean, that's the only way you can live the lifestyle they're leading.
The mother, by being willing to reveal that her son committed suicide, really does save face for her whole class. And the nurse even volunteers to lie for the doctor.
Yeah, the conspiracy of silence definitely takes over. Leo G. Carroll, I think, probably does know. He's looking a little shifty when she starts raising questions. I mean, he signed that death certificate very quickly. Yeah, he died in his sleep. It happens all the time with patients like this. No, it doesn't.
But also, nobody knows how he could possibly, unless the nurse is lying and left the medicine out, nobody knows how he could possibly have got the medicine.
Anyone hanging out with Colin Clive the night before knows suicide was an inevitability.
Of course, it is odd, you know, at the ending, the feeling of everybody just breathing a sigh of relief. Now that useless guy is gone, we can get on with our lives and be happy.
That's what I've been saying about the film's ableism. I mean, that's a term that you hear a lot these days and really applies to the underlying ethic of this film.
Well, it's not as bad as, I think it's also a Warner Brothers movie that ends with, isn't it Dangerous? It ends with Bette Davis essentially choosing to sacrifice her life by devoting it to taking care of her
dumbass
disabled husband.
Because he got himself in a car accident. Yeah. I mean, he really doesn't deserve it. But she won the Oscar for that, as we just learned from Mr. Findler's book. All right, let's take a look at Clive Hirschhorn's The Warner Brothers story and hear what he had to say about our second feature. They could have sold tissues by the boxful at every performance of I Found Stella Parish, a 40-carat weepy devised by John Monk Sanders and written as a vehicle for Kay Francis by the prolific Casey Robinson. The saga of an actress who stops at nothing to prevent her little daughter, Sybil Jason, from learning the truth about her shady past. It was one of Miss Francis's more successful efforts and kept America's womanhood in tears for months. Mervyn LeRoy, at his soppiest, directed it, with Ori Kelly again dressing its star in such a way as to draw attention to her glamorous appearance rather than to her limited talents as an actress.
Ouch.
Fuck you.
But you don't like that, Dave, and you just confirmed it.
Supervised by Harry Joe Brown, the production also starred the suave Ian Hunter, with Paul Lucas, Jesse Ralph, and Barton McLean in support.
So I was very curious to find out how this movie did at the box office, because I didn't know what portion of Kay Francis's career at Warner Brothers we were at. It led me down a kind of rabbit hole of learning more about that trajectory at Warner Brothers, because as it turns out, this movie is a very famous turning point in that trajectory. All the TCM sources talk about how this was a movie that did so well at the box office that Francis's already enormous salary at Warner Brothers for a female star of her time was increased. It was already at 115,000 annually, and they gave her an increase based on this movie's box office, and then extended her contract.
And that's consistent with what we hear from Hirschhorn. It was a gigantic hit.
And I guess the only other thing I learned in my research that was a little different from how you had told your understanding of Kay Francis's career to me, because before now that's the only knowledge I had of it, was that the reason for her demotion, specifically in 1938, was that she was complaining, and this is obviously a trend among female stars of Warner Brothers in the 1930s, because Bette Davis and Olivia de Havilland took it even further, but she was complaining about the quality of her roles even while she was one of their top stars, and they did not like this. I don't know, we'd have to go into the weeds here, and I think you have a book on Kay Francis you haven't read yet, but maybe it was a situation where Bette Davis's star was rising and they didn't want this noisy Kay Francis causing them problems, so they figured they could demote her, like Alice Faye and Betty Grable, always having another big female soap star in the wings.
A lot of the information that you get that's just ambiently out there about Kay Francis and Warner Brothers is that at a certain point anyway, and it turns out it's later in the decade than I thought, they felt terribly saddled with this gigantic salary that they had to pay her.
I mean, possibly, who knows, you'd have to read the book, but possibly this was her peak, and although she remained a huge star, she still couldn't justify what was now a staggering salary.
She was making more money than anybody else at Warner Brothers, and by like 1936, 37, certainly Errol Flynn was a bigger star than she was.
And Bette Davis was rising.
Bette Davis was rising, absolutely. She had won an Oscar. She won it this year, in 1935.
Why would you then, since you're paying her this money anyway, why would you kill her?
Because these moguls, they're not cold-hearted businessmen. They're in some ways better and much worse than that, right? They're vindictive. Jack Warner was famously vindictive, so if he gave an across-the-board directive in 1938, no more A pictures for Kay Francis, and that's certainly what it looks like, even though I love her B movies from 1938 and 1939. If Kay Francis was going around complaining about these movies, and I have no doubt that she was, she still somehow is magnificent in all of them, I think.
But with this new timeline, where Kay Francis is a star at Warner Brothers from 1933 to 1937. This is why I was saying I contest the 2 stars.
I guess Findler had an idea similar to mine, that she was getting paid a lot, but not necessarily one of the brightest lights in the Warner Brothers firmament in terms of box office pull for a lot of the length of her career.
Well, according to TCM, Francis was, in addition to being named the top grossing female star of 1935, which is how she got this huge salary, during the years 1930 to 37, she appeared on more magazine covers than anyone except Shirley Temple.
Yeah, well, that is vital information, and certainly I never knew that she was still a box office champion in 1935. A lot of the time you hear that, Warner Brothers started to regret it very shortly after signing her from Paramount.
On the contrary, they only regretted it, I guess, after themselves deciding to award an even larger salary to her.
I'm sure there's a lot out there, but I just haven't looked into it. Were they partly responsible for putting her on the box office poison article?
Well, probably, since they demoted her in 1938. Oh, you mean in addition to that?
Yeah, did their publicist say, yeah, go ahead, assassinate Kay Francis?
Well, it would have been true anyway, so they probably didn't need to do that.
How can you be box office poison if you're not even in movies that are expected to make box office, which is what B movies are?
The other thing that I find interesting, if Kay Francis was like this record-breaking star, even for Warner Brothers, in the mid-30s, and was a star throughout most of the 1930s, why isn't she remembered? Alongside Katharine Hepburn, Barbara Stanwyck, Bette Davis, Claudette Colbert, etc., etc. Why? All that TCM has to say about that is few of her movies have endured as classics, and she retired relatively early. I don't know, which part of this do we want to give more weight to? Why does nobody remember Kay Francis? Except for Trouble in Paradise.
Yeah, well, it's a chicken and egg situation.
And she was this, like I said, this record-breaking, for a while, star for Warner Brothers specifically. So why is she remembered for a Paramount movie?
Because it was directed by all-time champion auteur Ernst Lubitsch. Trouble in Paradise is the only movie that non-studio era obsessives are going to know Kay Francis for. But if you love movies from the 30s and 40s and you are on the lookout for them at all times when they come come on PBS, say, like I was in the 1980s, you were going to see some Kay Francis movies, and you were going to see that she was amazing in them, and then you would read about her as some kind of a joke. Always like the first thing you read about her, that she couldn't pronounce R's, that she can't act.
Neither can Marlene Dietrich.
It's just remarkable that this kind of thing perpetuates itself, and even Clive Hirschhorn's review there just can't resist taking a poke at her acting abilities. I don't understand it, because I think she has tremendous screen presence. I find myself totally engrossed in whatever she's doing on screen at all times.
We saw that really early movie that she was in, playing the wicked other woman, and she stole the movie.
The one with Basil Rathbone.
Yeah, where she was in her riding outfit. Oh yeah, A Notorious Affair, where she played Countess Olga Balakiris, and she stole the whole picture, right, in this tiny little role. So she obviously had amazing star power.
Yeah, she jumps off the screen. She's incredibly fun, even in The Coconuts, where you would think she would be getting majorly upstaged by the Marx Brothers.
From a revisionist perspective, now I can't say, outside of the bubble of our very own podcast here, I can't say that I really know what's going on in terms of appreciation of classical Hollywood. There's something brewing on YouTube with movies that even we haven't been able to find before popping up, and people being able to view them, get exposed to them. Classical Hollywood Cinema Appreciation movie blog, so I don't really know what's going on with Kay Francis's reputation now. From a revisionist perspective, sort of from a serious critic or auteurist perspective, think of the directors that she worked with in this period.
Well, Borzage, we did those two movies.
Yeah, Borzage, two with Dieterle. Mervyn LeRoy and Michael Curtiz are not exactly unknown names.
No, but they're not names that people think of apart from the Warner Brothers style. Maybe they should, but they don't.
Yeah, maybe not, but they do crop up in discussions of the top studio directors of the era.
Yeah, craftsmen, for sure. But they're never thought of as visionaries. And again, this is a fault of film discourse to some extent. And she may be getting trapped in that because she didn't work with the visionary directors that much, although those two Borzage movies are intensely Borzagian, and she is intrinsic to their success.
Oh, right, there's Stranded as well as Libya on Velvet.
Yeah, they're wonderful. We talked about them in an earlier Warner Brothers 1935 episode.
So if nobody's done it already, it feels to me like, for so many reasons, that Kay Francis's 1930s career deserves another look.
TCM gives her an actor spotlight every year, and they show tons of movies because she made all these Warner Brothers movies, and they're all in the TCM collection.
Right, so is it just our experience growing up that nobody talked about Kay Francis? Maybe everybody talks about Kay Francis now.
Yeah, I think it is changing. In that book, gotta make the time to read it. I Can't Wait to Be Forgotten is what it's called. So that gives you an idea of what Kay Francis thought about her own career. But man, she is essential to understanding what 1930s cinema could do, what interesting opportunities women were getting in these movies. She may not have even seen how important her contributions were. I Found Stella Parish. I mean, look at all the stuff she gets to do in this movie.
This movie I need to see again sometime. I was unprepared for it because it's such a star vehicle, full of such classic melodrama tropes, and yet I literally had no preparation. Because I've never read anything about this movie. I've never heard anything about this movie. So yeah, I feel like I need to see it again now that I'm a little more prepared. I didn't understand why a Mervyn LeRoy movie was starting with a cute little girl singing a song. I didn't know why we were, supposed to start loving and adoring this little girl.
Well, Sybil Jason, probably my favorite child actor of the 30s. Really lovable.
Better than Dickie Moore?
There's a lot of good ones, of course. Virginia Weidler, wonderful. Performance in this movie is really great. And then in The Great O'Malley, which is a very underrated Dieterle movie, she is truly moving.
She's genuinely really, really cute in this movie, as she needs to be.
Yeah.
I'm watching the melodrama unfold. Right at the point where you kind of think it's going to be resolved, where Stella confesses her love to Ian Hunter.
He's already completely fucked everything up.
Yeah, and then she finds out how he's betrayed her. So at that point, parts of the plot are coming to resolution, and I'm feeling, well, I guess this movie's almost over. Gonna have to wait to see what happens, how things turn out. Pretty much getting to the end end of this plot. And it's been okay. It's been an okay melodrama, but nothing spectacular. And then it goes batshit crazy with those giant spectacle stage performances of her own life.
Yeah, she starts exploiting her notoriety.
This is something you expect from Blonde Venus, from like a Dietrich movie.
Yeah, exactly. And then that starts to peter out, and they're like, well, if you're willing and debased enough, you can go into burlesque. And she's like, fine, burlesque.
Sign me up. The whole movie is also delivered in this interesting way. Kay Francis's acting style in it is kind of declamatory and Brechtian rather than naturalistic. If you wanted to compare this to Vidor's Stella Dallas or something. You know what I mean? There's a real declamatory rhythm and energy to the movie that feels more Warner Brothers.
Yeah, I can see that.
Even in this uncharacteristic movie. And she's often declaiming her lines in a distinctly non-naturalistic way.
But it always feels perfect for her, the being that she is portraying on screen. I don't feel like it seems false.
Well, how could it be false?
People do accuse her of being a bad actress, of being wooden on screen or whatever.
No, I feel like this is a stylistic choice, if anything, of the director.
Maybe, but this is also an exemplary actor performance by Kay Francis. I mean, this is what she does. And she plays these staggeringly powerful women in so many of her movies, right?
I guess that doesn't really change in the B movies. Like, the B movies don't seem...
No, they're great.
Yeah, they don't seem very different in their substance from what she's doing in this movie.
King of the Underworld is absolutely a knockout movie. It could only be a B movie. She plays this wonderful doctor who's going toe-to-toe with the underworld. I mean, she's almost always a professional of some kind. Her job is very important to her, and she almost never gives it up. She doesn't in this one either. It's incredibly important that she is able to go back and be a legitimate star again. If that doesn't happen, everything in this world would implode.
Yeah, it's odd, because when J.E. Smith is discussing Francis's career in Nobody's Girl Friday, the way she describes Francis objecting to the roles that Warner Brothers were giving her, she says, although a top box office draw and all over the covers of 1930s film magazines, Francis's scripts were poorly written and repeated too many stereotypes of homewreckers and high-class whores. Who are these homewreckers and high-class whores? Who?
Not sure. None that I can think of that would be solely described that way. There might be some characters that have unconventional sexual mores, but the movie is on her side. There's no Warner Brothers movie that I can think of where she plays something like the Joan Crawford role in The Women. She does play a kind of maniacally evil wife in Name Only at RKO, bedeviling Cary Grant and Carol Lombard.
Specifically not the homewrecker.
No, she's posing as saintly wifehood transgressed against. But yeah, it's all a Machiavellian ruse.
But as you said, like over and over again, she's playing professional women or interesting thieves or...
Actresses. She plays a lot of actresses. There are several B movies.
Well, that's a professional woman.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I don't really understand where that's coming from. Maybe this is a writer who is more interested in Kay Francis's struggle in her career than in her movies?
That's generally what you get. People talking about the image of Kay Francis or the received wisdom about Kay Francis, and it just keeps getting repeated, and nobody watches the movies and actually talks about them. Although that has to be changing.
But I'm so interested in even mild revisionist takes that can cause us to look again at what an actor is doing. Because the original impetus behind our acteur series, our first acteur was Jennifer Jones. I was really disturbed by the way that so long after the discourse about Jennifer Jones's career originated, these reputations still linger, and somehow they transfer from print culture onto the internet. You need people to be, I guess, countering them in very specific, very textually specific ways.
Yeah, they're oddly intractable. These weird legends that are not true. People getting reduced to just a series of words that are supposed to mean them, like, you dirty rat, or this kind of thing, right?
And Clara Bow, we talked about, the slight differences between reality and the tragic narrative of her career. But yeah, people get interested in these kind of melodramatic, sensationalistic stories of Hollywood careers, and it's that melodramatic melodramatic texture that's very, very sticky, a melodramatic soundbite that they get reduced to.
Yeah, all we can do is use the Hollywood studios year by year to try to redress that balance somewhat, and we will get to just about every Kay Francis movie by the time we're done. We've already talked about quite a few of them. This is one that I had not seen before.
Well, with that said, we should actually start talking about the movie.
So it begins. She is at the height of her fame. She's a mysterious American actress who has taken London by storm. We see many London denizens lining up to see her in some weird ancient Roman.
Put a pin in that. I just wanted to say, of course, the architects of this box office giant of a movie are the great screenwriters, John Monk Saunders, who provided the story, and Casey Robinson, who worked on many and many a famous Betty Davis picture at Warner Brothers.
Yeah, he wrote Now Voyager. He wrote a lot of Casablanca. He's one of the people in that mix. He wrote single-handedly King's Row.
Yeah, so he's a great melodrama writer. But yeah, this was a really absurd beginning. This ancient Rome play.
Guess it's like I, Claudius or something. It's supposed to be something in that vein, right?
Yeah, and she's being sent to her death in the arena, I guess, because she's in love with somebody she's not supposed to be.
Yeah, but that's going to be her triumph. It's her dark victory.
Yeah, I just thought this was absurd, but it actually lands perfectly as a bookend. Suddenly, you realize it's a real coup de théâtre, because suddenly you realize, so to speak, the purpose that setup was serving when Stella goes to face the lions of the audience at the end of the movie. Right? Do you feel the callback?
Yeah, of course. And instead of faith in the transcendent, which is animating her resistance to tyranny, she has just this overwhelming love of her daughter. She had renounced her daughter. I mean, again, this is like an intervention in the Stella Dallas genre, saying, no, there is something even greater than renouncing your daughter, that is coming back together with your daughter and inspiring her by just being yourself on the stage, enjoying all the adulation of London assembled.
Yeah, it's another transgressive happy ending. In the Rome play, was she a Christian martyr, or was she a woman who was unfaithful to her husband? I wasn't sure.
It seemed like maybe both.
Maybe both. Like I said, we need to watch this movie again sometime. I think it is important just that you get the sense that due to love, she is going to be able to
withstand anything.
Withstand this terrible fate. Yeah. And then all of this ridiculous stiff theater is suddenly melted into molten melodrama gold at the end of the movie.
She's developed this very close partnership with the play's director, producer, whatever he is, Paul Lucas. He's in love with her. He asks her to marry him pretty much every day, and she says no. He'll ask her again tomorrow. No problem. He does seem to really care for her genuinely. He's not depicted as a bad guy for hounding her this way, but on the other hand, we don't think she's going to weaken. Like, we just get the sense she is devoted to the stage, not thinking about anything else except providing for her daughter in the best way that she can, and the best way that she can do that is by being this huge leading light of the London stage. She never appears in public. She doesn't like it, she says, and she tells Paul Lucas, you know, this was part of your plan for me too. This was our plan. I'm a woman of mystery. I can't be accessible at every party for the London literati. They've got to be left guessing about me too. Fatefully, she is going to agree to attend a party, and we find out all the stuff about her country retreat, and we see her with her daughter, as you said. Daughter also looking forward to being a performer, it seems, like mommy. And it does spend quite a bit of runtime exhibiting Sybil Jason as a weird moppet that you can't help but love.
Well, yeah, it's very important to many aspects of the movie that the daughter wants to be an actress like her mother.
Worships her mother. And not for the reasons that most children in most movies worship their mother, like that she's such a good caregiver. She worships her mother because she thinks, and she's right,
that her mother's a big star.
She's a stage goddess.
Yeah.
I want to be like her, and I'm impressed by her. This party proves to be very dangerous for Stella because Ian Hunter, who is the best reporter in the world, we're told. All the other reporters just don't understand how he does it. Wherever he goes, he gets stories nobody else can. He's just been in Ethiopia, where Mussolini was invading and causing havoc.
I was just thinking the name
Yeah, the character
Stella
name.
is deliberate because the Olive Higgins Proty novel, of course, was most famously adapted in 1937 by King Vidor for the screen, but it was from 1923.
And it was a famous silent movie too, Stella Dallas.
Yeah, so this is one of the interventions, as you said, in the Stella Dallas genre or maternal sacrifice trope. But I feel like this movie also has a relationship, maybe not intentionally, but textually, it has a relationship with Ruben Mamoulian's Applause.
That's interesting.
Which is the most devastatingly, it's not even tragic, you can't even call it tragic, it's too dark to be tragic.
Yeah.
There's nothing redeeming about it at all. The ending is the saddest thing I have ever seen in my entire life as an adult watching movies.
It just damages the universe.
As an adult, it felt like being a kid again watching Bette Midler in The Rose or watching White Dog.
Oh, God.
Which unfortunately I saw as a kid, both of them.
When Stella goes back to her dressing room, she is confronted by the hulking, shadowed figure of Barton McLean. We never see his face.
No, this was a nice little stylistic touch by Mervyn LeRoy.
But he's a known character actor at Warner Brothers, so if you've seen a lot of their gangster movies, you know exactly what he looks like because nobody else sounds like this guy.
We just see the back of him in his fedora.
And he tells her, well, I tracked you down. You got too big for your britches. You shouldn't have done that. Now it's all over for you. We don't know exactly what that means, but we know it's huge trouble. And she disappears. She's been worried about something like this happening. We know she's been terribly afraid that her former identity will be exposed. Well, it happened so early in the movie. That's kind of a shocker. You think that that's going to be the plot of the whole movie. Like, can she keep whatever she did in the past under wraps, blown wide open immediately? And the fact that she doesn't show up at the party, this just drives Ian Hunter crazy, and he just has to find out everything about her and track her down, and again add this as another notch on his reporter's belt.
Of course, I kept thinking about Jean Arthur. Mr. Deeds Goes to Town.
Well, the other reporters are getting chewed out the same way that the Mr. Deeds reporters are getting just absolutely reamed by their editor. Like, why can't you be like Babe, right?
Yeah, but he does go about things in a really dreadful way, just as she reprimands him later, right? Because he tries to befriend the daughter.
Oh yeah, well, he does not care what he has to do to get a story. One shudders to think what he did in War Zones. We get to see all of his methods, and they're pretty sound. I mean, he uses bribery, basic detective work, shadowing, and he's willing to go to any lengths. And he's backed by his newspaper, so he can get a temporary passport if he needs one, or an entry visa, whatever. It's kind of weird that he doesn't have a passport if he's a jet setter. But anyway, he can't get into the United States without telephoning his boss, who pulls some strings for him. And what Kay Francis is doing, I mean, she's had an exit strategy prepared in her mind for a long time, and she executes. She has her faithful nurse or nanny or companion, whatever she is, Jessie Ralph, great actress as well. And so these three women pack up to return to the United States. And Kay Francis's idea is, I'll just go back to the land I came from and melt into the environment. Nobody's going to recognize me there. I can't stay in England. I stand out too much. On the transatlantic journey, she dresses as a maiden aunt. I think she's so good.
Oh, yeah, I like the moment where she's still got the old lady makeup on, but she takes off her gray wig and reveals her dark bob. I was like, oh, it's me at 50. Oh, that's what I look like now.
She's really great, I think. Well, every single minute of this movie, but playing that aunt is wonderful. I mean, she's got the body language, playing this character exactly as it would be played in another movie if she was really supposed to be that thing. So I'm not saying it's a naturalistic performance, but it's a brilliant performance as a 50-year-old aunt in a movie.
She's convinced her daughter to spend the whole trip pretending, acting, trying out her acting skills by pretending that this is in fact her aunt. And I actually buy it that this daughter, because she's so obsessed with becoming an actress like her mother, would never break character.
Yeah, she's like, this is great. What a fun game.
But of course, we're worried about her breaking character in front of Ian Hunter.
Yeah, but she doesn't. However, she doesn't know that she's supposed to be protecting her mother's identity, so she lets Ian Hunter go wild in the cabin and find all the evidence he needs. Or I guess he finds most of it once they're back in New York. But anyway, he's gathering his evidence. I like that he establishes a flirtation with Kay Francis in her middle-aged woman garb, and then calls back to it when he says, "You're just as beautiful as your aunt," when he meets her in New York. I really like Ian Hunter. He's in so many movies in the 30s. He's often called upon as support for big Warner Brothers actresses. He's in a lot of movies with Bette Davis. He's in quite a few with Kay Francis, including some others where she's an actress. He's probably most famous, at least in our circle here, for playing basically Jesus in Strange Cargo.
Oh, that's where I'm recognizing him from.
Cambro.
Yeah.
So here he's far from Jesus-like. I mean, he is really devious.
In fact, he's trying to crucify her.
He is.
Among the other texts we've been talking about, feels like it had a sort of relationship to Biography of a Bachelor Girl, and the reporter who's trying to exploit Anne Harding's past misdeeds. But the relationship becomes more notable after Stella Parish goes on her course of self-exploitation.
Yeah, it certainly does. And the way Ian Hunter plays it, I think it's really interesting because as a viewer, you think he's falling in love with her, and he assures us and her, "No, I wasn't falling in love with you. It was all absolutely a ruse," because that's not how these things usually go.
I mean, I guess he only retrospectively falls in love with her after he finds out what her story really is. And also finds out that she's fallen in love with him, because then he feels like a real jerk.
Yeah, well, that's when he changes, right? And of course, as you say, when she tells her real story, he just totally comes clean with her eventually, and he says, "I thought you were putting on a big act, so I was putting on a big act too. I was trying to outwit you.
Right.
It was an incredible game for me, and I won, and now I found out I didn't know the stakes at all of the game we were playing, and I can't take it back because it's been bruited about in every newspaper in the world now." And she decides to just run with that and go full nihilist. "You guys want to exploit me? I'm gonna exploit myself worse than you could ever imagine." It's like a Courtney Love move.
The scene with her and the reporters after she's found out that Ian Hunter spread this story.
Yeah, I killed a guy.
Yeah, and she wants to sell her story to the highest bidder, right, to get the most amount of money out of it that she can, now that she can no longer conceal anything and has to give up her daughter anyway. I think that's probably her best scene in the movie.
No, it's absolutely brilliant. Early on, you're worried. You're like, oh, she's just barely keeping it together. Somehow she's managing to impersonate her own aunt, moving through the scenery, in such a way that nobody else is twigging to her identity. Only Ian Hunter is on to her. But when that's exposed, is she just going to collapse? Absolutely not. She is going to adapt on a dime. She's just had this massively emotional confession of love that she's given to Ian Hunter, and he says, "Hold that thought 1 minute. I'm going to go make a phone call. I'll be right back." He runs off to try to kill the story, which he can't. And so she's just been through all of this. You would think she is a prime candidate for just shattering into a million pieces if she finds out that her great secret has been exposed, and it's been exposed by this guy she's just confessed her love to. But instead, she is dialed in on the pragmatic thing to do, which is exploit this new notoriety, get maybe even more money than she was getting for being a stage goddess in London. Now she can be the tabloid's best friend.
Yeah, but like I said, this is where the movie really impressed me with how batshit insane it was going to go. All of a sudden, we've got plays within the movie, levels of reality, postmodern whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, recreating the scene of the crime.
Synecdoche, New York, where we're seeing a representation of the real woman's story of the character in the movie.
It's remarkable.
And didn't it also make you think of that Ophuls movie about the woman who becomes a star and is eaten alive?
La Signora di Tutti.
Everybody's woman, yeah.
Yeah, well, we're actually doing that next month.
Oh, crazy! Look at that. It in certain ways anticipates Lola Montez, although I like the earlier movie better.
That's true, yeah. Lola Montez just puts herself out there in a circus. Certainly that's what Stella Parish is willing to do. If there was a circus offering to buy her story, she would have appeared in it.
Instead of which she goes into burlesque. So we get this whole tawdry cycle that is no different now
It's like a sex tape.
Sure, a sex tape, but also, I was going to say the stage show is also like a reality TV show.
This season on The Surreal Life, Stella Parish and Flavor Flav.
I mean, I have no doubt. I don't know if they were quite like this, but I have no doubt that there were notorious criminals who made stage shows out of their tabloid headlines.
Yeah, Texas Guinan or...
Cycle of exploitation where you can sell yourself in the most demeaning and degrading way possible, sell your private life, and then people just get tired of it. But not in burlesque.
No, burlesque, there's always some dregs of society that are willing to join you at the bottom.
And they never get tired of seeing your most humiliating moments.
No.
Including, that's where the stage scene we watch and that Ian Hunter is watching closes on something she alluded to already before when she was telling him her story sincerely, which is that she used her wiles with the prison authorities to get out of prison early and get back to her daughter.
A woman can always get parole.
Apparently.
If you look like Kay Francis, maybe that's true. But yeah, that's an interesting commentary on the criminal justice system. We know she was unjustly convicted, but according to the state, she is a murderess, and they just let her walk after a couple of years.
Do you feel like that's a particularly Warner Brothers moment?
Well, yeah, anytime you're talking about systemic corruption, that's definitely something Warner Brothers is more willing to look at than most of the other studios.
And then with the two male suitors, we get a shell game of caddishness and nobility when Paul Lucas shows up again. Is it going to turn out that Paul Lucas is the noble guy that she should have been interested in all along? Because we're still waiting for Ian Hunter to reform. He's still hanging around looking like he wants to. So what's really going on here?
Well, the two men are working in tandem. Ian Hunter is really behind all of it, convinced Paul Lucas to pretend that he thinks that she can just pick up where she left off after all of this notoriety.
So this is very sophisticated dramaturgy as well, right? Because the audience is wondering what trope they're going to get. Is the trope going to be seemingly nice man who was proposing to her in the first place is the man that she should have chosen all along because he is the noble self-sacrificing soul who will believe in her.
He'll bankrupt himself and put her on the stage even though no one's going to come or they're going to be closed by censors.
I know, and of course we're watching this and thinking what an absurd melodrama trope, and it turns out that it is, and it's being engineered behind the scenes by Ian Hunter. So there's all sorts of, and this really makes me think of Max Ophuls, right? And how Max Ophuls is himself just using and drawing on the inner logic of melodrama tropes, right?
I think Max Ophuls would have made great Kay Francis movies.
Because you get this hall of mirrors where everybody's performing different melodramas for each other, or even in Kay Francis's case, performing her own life as a melodrama for the public.
Yeah, she siloed herself off, condemning herself to this life of public ridicule. And her daughter, presumably they're training her to think of herself as a different name, stop thinking about Stella Parish, not letting her look at newspapers. I guess she probably isn't reading newspapers at age 7.
She's off in a boarding school.
Yeah.
In a boarding school, they are protected from all of these things.
That's right. She'll forget her eventually. That's the idea. But we know, and the movie knows, that's not possible in this case. And it doesn't want you to think that noble sacrifice is the way to go, even though it's impressive that she's willing to go to all these lengths, willing to cut herself off for all time from this daughter that is really the source of all of her happiness.
Well, they're the source of each other's.
They're no good apart.
So Ian Hunter, I guess the path to his redemption is that having worked his way into Kay Francis's trust so that he could betray her through this daughter, he now has to use that bond with the daughter in order to set things right in Stella's life again.
Yeah, it's to demonstrate how well he knows her, how well he loves her, by engineering this wonderful reunion at the theater.
Against her wishes.
Absolutely. She has forbidden all of this. But when it happens, she's transfigured. And the movie comes to an exultant climax with basically the entire world 100% behind her at that point.
Yeah, well, she recovers herself. She's returned to herself by seeing her daughter and seeing her daughter's expectations and admiration for her.
And all of that descent into burlesque and other exploitation, it just doesn't matter anymore. Nobody cares, and they're not going to hold it against her.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. You can see from the way she has lit up. Within herself, she has now become that character that she was playing who, through love, can face anything, can face the worst torments, and they won't hurt her. But from the sound of the audience clapping, we are allowed to know that she's not going to have to face that.
No, they're not going to set the lions upon her. Barton McLean is totally neutralized.
But it doesn't matter either way.
It's incredible.
But yeah, when it comes to Kay Francis's acting, I don't know. I never see her doing bad acting. She's doing star acting.
Yeah, I think the people that say these things, they're just delusional. I don't understand what they're even talking about. Then again, I also like to champion George Raft and Alan Ladd.
But nothing she's being asked to do in this movie from beginning to end is naturalistic. So you're thinking of things in the wrong terms if that is your expectation from a movie like this. But the movie is even announcing itself as highly postmodern in the ways that we're talking about, and very sophisticated about being a movie about acting.
With absolutely the right person at the top of the cast list, the great Kay Francis. We're concluding this episode with So This Is Saris. I've asked Gemini to give us a random director, and we've got a gem this time from The Far Side of Paradise, Gregory LaCava. We'll start with the information and opinions that Saris gives us. Gregory LaCava's dates are 1892 to 1949, sadly short life. He gives us the filmography, and he italicizes the ones that are going to be most crucial to his understanding of this person as an auteur. From 1927, Running Wild. I have not seen that. Then we get into the sound era, The Half-Naked Truth.
Age of Consent, not italicized. That's a mistake.
Yeah, several mistakes already that I can see. She Married Her Boss. My Man Godfrey. Stage Door. Unfinished Business. I'm happy to see that that was italicized.
But Primrose Path, not.
No, and Fifth Avenue Girl is a remarkable film too. Lots of other movies should have been italicized, I think. Let's see how Saris determines that this adds up to The Far Side of Paradise, which is, again, tier 2 in the hierarchy.
Yeah, so not so bad.
Pretty good. Not that many people ranked this highly by Andrew Saris. Gregory LaCava's best films, She Married Her Boss, My Man Godfrey, Stage Door, and Unfinished Business, reveal a flair for improvisation and a delicate touch with such expert comedians as Claudette Colbert, Carole Lombard, Katharine Hepburn, Ginger Rogers, and Irene Dunne. The seduction scene of Irene Dunne and Preston Foster in Unfinished Business, like that of Jean Arthur and Joel McCrea in Stevens' The More the Merrier, demonstrates the conflict between Hollywood's erotic images and its laundered scripts. Significantly, LaCava was most effective when he could work between the lines of his scenarios and against the conventions of his plots. W.C. Fields credited LaCava with the best comedy mind in Hollywood, next to Fields' own, and Life magazine once reproduced LaCava's on-the-set sketches for the Billy Rose takeoff in Unfinished Business. Of such trifles was the legend of LaCava fashioned. However, the LaCava touch never became as famous as the Lubitsch touch, even after the New York Film Critics Circle singled out LaCava's direction of Stage Door for an award in 1937. The LaCava touch was mainly touches, whereas the Lubitsch touch expressed a distinctive vision of the world. LaCava's more solemn projects, What Every Woman Knows, The Affairs of Cellini, Private Worlds, and Primrose Path, suffer from structural deficiencies.
Oh, I didn't even see Private Worlds on the list. That is wrong. I mean, what Sarah says there is wrong.
Yes, he's wrong. He's remembered now for a few interludes of antic desperation in the midst of the Depression.
So this starts out strong, and then ends up saying, ugh, just some antic desperation, heavy-handed melodrama. What the hell? Like, this is tier 2? That seems like the 12th Circle of Hell, or, I don't know my Dante very well.
9. There's 9 levels of hell.
Oh, I've just made some more, so the 12th.
He's obviously saying those comedies are so good, those touches, even if they're only touches and not part of some greater vision.
Antic desperation?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to defend that. We love Private Worlds. We love Primrose Path. Symphony of 6 Million was also a great movie.
Yeah, I missed that too.
Age of Consent, as you mentioned.
Every LaCava movie we've seen, what do I want to say? It's intelligent, it's sensitive, it's distinctive among other Hollywood dramas.
And they do distinguish themselves for the opportunities and the distinctive qualities of the female performances.
Yeah, sure.
So that is something that Saris mentions. He singles out those performances by those actresses.
Yeah, but he was talking about comedic comedic performances.
Yeah. No, I don't think that he lost his touch when he's doing dramas.
So is the Lubitsch touch more famous because Lubitsch could only do comedies? Then?
It's more consistently applied, I suppose.
Yeah, because you can switch back and forth between the two. Maybe the touch can't be discerned as the same thing. I don't know.
Yeah, well, again, that's one of those problems with auteurism, where that kind of consistency is rendered more important than it needs to be in the assessment of an artist's career.
And has this Lubitsch touch, like, how well has it served Lubitsch? Has it prevented critics from seeing what an incredibly wide array of subjects and approaches to the subjects Lubitsch has in his career, even just in the sound era? If you're looking at Ninotchka, and then you're looking at To Be or Not to Be, and then you're looking at The Shop Around the Corner, in a way you can see that they're all made by the same person, but on the other hand, his collaborators make such a strong contribution to Ninotchka. The farce of To Be or Not to Be, it's its own incredible thing given the subject matter.
And given Jack Benny.
But then it couldn't be more different from the delicate tone of The Shop Around the Corner. The people that he's dealing with in The Shop Around the Corner, their problems, their setting, their class could not be more different from Ninotchka or from Trouble in Paradise or from whatever you want to look at.
One day we'll get Lubitsch and we'll see what kind of paragraph Saris comes up with in the Pantheon, I believe.
Of course. And Clooney Brown? Clooney Brown is, again, a completely different type and style of comedy. Do we do Lubitsch a disservice by saying there's something uniform about all of his movies? This is what I'm saying.
Probably.
On the other hand, with Joseph von Sternberg, there really is. But only the movies that he made with Dietrich at Paramount. Nobody else could make those movies, and they have a very strong stamp on them. Although we've talked about the differences between them, and some of those differences are who he was writing with.
There are major variations, even within that suite of collaborations with Dietrich. But La Cava...
Sorry, yeah, to get back to La Cava.
Two minds about this thing, because I'm just really happy that Saris is singling out Unfinished Business as a movie that we loved when we discussed it on the podcast.
Unfinished Business is, maybe this is more La Cava improvisation, but it felt like a movie that was so delicately handled in its subject matter. Not like a movie that was walking through the paces of a plot, but a movie that was really exploring the subject matter and the relationships between the characters and the nuances and the modulations of that.
If there's something that sets La Cava movies apart from any other filmmaker's efforts, he will take you inside a story in a way that almost nobody else can. The most famous example in Hollywood lore of this is his work on Stage Door, where everyone basically did live together at his request, and he wrote the script as they went along, based entirely on real reactions that the actresses were having to each other. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that Saris is complaining about the lack of structure. Because,
oh yeah, that's exactly what I thought was a strength in Unfinished Business.
Exactly, because it's coming at you organically, assuming a shape. A narrative field is spreading from a kind of initial kernel, and it's just expanding, and you're inside it. Like the story about the haunted script in Inland Empire or something. Like, he will bring you inside it in a way that nobody else can. If you're looking for structure, no, that's not what he gives you, but he gives you something far rarer than a well-structured film. Feels like it's happening in front of you.
Well, I want to say it's like a deconstructed film. Yeah, the problem, I'm thinking, as we mull this over, the problem with these ranking books
is everything.
Sure, but is that when you're dealing with so many, and I mean, I hate lots of directors, so it's not like I think everybody needs to be praised.
No.
But why can't Saris consider the possibility? Why can't David Thompson consider the possibility? That book of American directors that he's got there, that almost everybody is really good. And why can't they all just be allowed to be in all of their movies, just be allowed to be as good as they are? Why do we need to be hating some to create the impression that we have standards? Ending on notes like a little bit of antic desperation is all this director amounts to.
Well, I think we'll close things there. We'll see what Cyrus has to say next time when we cap off our first episode of the Actor Spotlight on Sandra Dee.
That'll really test us how many movies we like in how many ways.
These are going to be interesting. I've never seen either of them. The Restless Years and The Reluctant Debutante. One of them is directed by Minnelli.
Yeah, I mean, I like Sandra Dee as a screen performer, but it was looking at her filmography. These movies just genuinely looked really interesting to me, and it's a moment in Hollywood history that we wouldn't otherwise be covering.
I hope you'll join us for that.